You are 7 years old, and your father is hitting you with a wooden sword. Not gently, not as a game. He is hitting you because you cried when you fell. And in the world you were born into, crying is something you cannot afford to do. Not now. Not ever. Your name is Katsuro, and all of this, is your entire life. You were born in a village in the Ekizan province in the year that 2 neighboring lords went to war over a rice tax. You don't remember the war. You were too young. But you remember the aftermath. The bodies they carried through the village on wooden boards, the smell that hung in the air for days, and your mother's face when she looked at your father and didn't say anything at all. Your father is a low-ranking samurai, not a great warrior, not a man whose name anyone will remember. He serves Lord Asakura's clan, which means he shows up when called, fights when ordered, and comes home when permitted. He is gone for months at a time. When he returns, he is quieter than when he left. The house you grow up in is small. 1 main room, a cooking area, a tiny garden where your mother grows vegetables because the rice stipend your father receives is never quite enough. You have 1 older sister named Hana. You have a younger brother who died before he could walk. You don't talk about him. In this world, children die. It is simply what happens. Your training begins when you are 5. Not with weapons, with posture. Your father makes you sit in seiza, kneeling on your heels for 1 hour every morning before breakfast. If you shift your weight, he notices. If you wince, he notices. The point is not the sitting. The point is learning to endure discomfort without showing it. This is the first lesson. By 6, you are running. Every morning, before the village wakes up, you run the path around the rice fields twice, barefoot. In summer, the ground is hard and hot. In winter, it is frozen and your feet bleed. Your father runs beside you for the first month, then stops. He watches from the doorway to see if you will continue without him. You do. Not because you want to, because stopping feels worse than running. The wooden sword starts at 7. It is heavier than you expect, and your wrists ache after 10 minutes of practice. Your father corrects your grip 16 times in the first session. He doesn't praise you when you get it right. He simply moves on to the next mistake. You will understand much later that this is its own kind of respect. He only corrects what he believes you are capable of fixing. You go to a temple school 3 days a week, where a Buddhist monk teaches you to read and write. Most of the other boys in the village don't go. Literacy is considered less important than physical training for a samurai's son. But your father insists. A warrior who cannot read an order, he says, is a liability. You memorize Chinese characters until your hand cramps and your eyes blur. At 8, you see your first execution. A peasant who stole from Lord Asakura's granary was sentenced to death. The samurai performing the execution is one of your father's colleagues, a man named Goto, who sometimes eats dinner at your house. You watch from a distance with the other village children. It takes longer than you expect. Goto's form is imprecise, and he has to strike twice. Nobody laughs. Nobody looks away. You feel sick, but you don't show it. You have already learned that much. That night you ask your father if it bothered Goto. Your father thinks about this for a moment. Goto did his duty, he says. Whether it bothered him is not the point. You think about this answer for years. At 11, everything accelerates. Your father arranges for you to train under a swordsman named Ishida, who lives 2 hours' walk from your village and is known in the province as someone who once served in a famous lord's personal guard. Whether this is true or embellishment, you never find out. What you know is that Ishida is 53 years old, has a scar running from his left ear to his collarbone, and has no patience for excuses of any kind. You train with Ishida 3 days a week for 4 years. The first 6 months, he doesn't let you touch a sword at all. You carry water, you chop wood, you clean the dojo floor on your hands and knees until it shines. When you ask why, Ishida looks at you the way an adult looks at a child who has said something stupid. Your body is still wrong, he says. I'm fixing it. You don't fully understand, but your posture improves, your grip strength doubles. You stop leading with your shoulder when you walk. The sword training, when it finally begins, is nothing like you imagined. There is no drama, No flowing movements, just one cut performed 10,000 times until it stops being a conscious act and becomes something closer to breathing. Ishida calls this the only real skill. Not the ability to do something correctly, but the inability to do it incorrectly. He teaches you that the sword is not a weapon. It is a consequence. You are the weapon. The sword is simply the last thing that happens. At 13, you begin sparring with other students. You lose badly for 6 months. A boy 2 years older than you, named Ren, beats you every session without appearing to try. He is faster and has better instincts. You hate him with the specific hatred of someone who recognizes they are genuinely inferior. Then one afternoon you stop trying to beat him and start trying to understand him. You watch how he breathes before he moves. You watch where his eyes go. 3 weeks later, you land your first clean strike on him. He nods at you. You nod back. You will fight alongside him for the next decade. Your father dies when you are 14. He falls ill in winter. A fever that starts in his chest and doesn't leave. He is dead in 3 weeks. Your mother sits with him every night and doesn't sleep. On the morning he dies, she comes to find you in the yard where you are practicing your cuts alone in the cold. She tells you. You bow your head. You go back to your cuts. Later, when you are alone in the storage shed pretending to look for something, you cry for approximately 2 minutes. Then you stop. Then you never do it again. The stipend from Lord Asakura's clan continues for 6 months after your father's death, as a courtesy. After that, you are responsible for your family. Your mother takes in sewing work. Your sister marries a farmer from a neighboring village. You increase your training and wait to be called. At 15, Lord Asakura's administrator visits your village and reviews the roster of samurai sons approaching service age. You are measured, questioned, and watched doing basic sword forms. You are accepted into service. You will receive a small stipend, a horse, shared with another young samurai, and a set of armor that belonged to someone who died in the last war. It doesn't fit perfectly. You have it adjusted 3 times over the following year. The night before you report for service, your mother makes the same meal she made every year on your birthday. Rice with salted plum and grilled fish. She doesn't say anything meaningful. She doesn't give you advice. She fills your bowl twice without being asked. You understand this is how she says what she cannot say out loud.
Service is mostly waiting. This is the thing nobody tells you. You imagined battles, clear enemies, moments where your training would matter. Instead, you stand guard. You escort supply wagons. You patrol roads looking for bandits and find, most of the time, nothing. You attend your lord's administrative meetings, where men argue about rice yields and border disputes, and you stand at the back of the room, looking present and thinking about nothing. You are stationed at a garrison with 30 other low-ranking samurai. Most of them are like you, sons of men who served, trained since childhood, waiting for a war that may or may not come. Some of them are good men. Some of them are petty and cruel in the way that men become when they have authority over others, but no real enemy to face. One of them, a man named Daichi, makes life difficult for the newer recruits in ways that are too small to formally report and too constant to ignore. You deal with this by outlasting him. He rotates to a different post after 8 months. You stay.
Your first real violence comes not in battle, but on a road outside a farming village, when a group of men, probably Ronin, masterless samurai fallen into banditry, attempts to rob a merchant you are escorting. There are 4 of them, 3 of you. It is not a duel. It is not honorable. It is fast and messy, and afterwards, one of your companions has a cut on his forearm that needs to be bound. One of the bandits is dead. 2 have run, and one is sitting in the road holding his side and asking for water. You give him water. Then you arrest him and bring him to the garrison. He is executed 2 days later. You don't watch this time, not because you can't, because you have already seen enough executions to know what they look like, and watching doesn't teach you anything new. You are 19 when you first kill a man in actual combat. It is during a border skirmish, one of Lord Asakura's territorial disputes turning briefly hot before being resolved through negotiation. You are part of a force of 60 men, sent to hold a river crossing. The other side sends 40. The fighting lasts perhaps 20 minutes, it feels, both much longer and much shorter than that. The man you kill is older than you. He has a red cord on his armor that you don't recognize. He fights competently, but he is tired. You can see it in how he recovers his guard after each exchange, a fraction of a second slower than it should be. You find the opening and you take it. It is clean as these things can be. Afterwards, when the fighting is over and you are accounting for your men and your lord's commander is complimenting the unit's performance, you feel nothing in particular, not pride, not guilt, not relief. Later, you will wonder if this absence of feeling means something is wrong with you. Then you will meet enough other soldiers to understand that this is simply what the body does when it is working correctly. It files the experience away and moves on, because standing in a field, feeling things about what just happened, is a way to get killed in the next engagement. You write to your mother that you are well. You do not describe the skirmish. The Sengoku period, the age of warring states, does not care about your plans. You are 22 when the real wars begin for your clan. Lord Asakura's position in the province becomes contested by forces from the south. What starts as a territorial dispute becomes a prolonged series of campaigns that will consume the next 8 years of your life. War at this scale is different from skirmishes. It is an organizational problem as much as a military one. Thousands of men moving, camping, eating, falling ill, getting lost, losing equipment, arguing about orders, dying from infected wounds before they ever reach a battlefield. The enemy is not just the opposing army. The enemy is dysentery. The enemy is rain that turns roads to mud and makes supply wagons take 3 days to travel what should take 1. The enemy is the 3 weeks you spend in a fortified position, eating reduced rations, while both sides wait for something to shift. And then suddenly it isn't waiting anymore. The Battle of Tonezawa is the largest engagement you participate in. Approximately 4,000 men on each side, spread across a valley and 2 adjacent ridges. You command a unit of 12 men by this point. You are responsible for them in a way you were not responsible for anything before. When you make a decision, 12 men act on it immediately and without question. 2 of them are younger than you were when you killed your first man. The battle lasts most of a day. In the chaos of large-scale fighting, most of what you experience is a very small piece of a very large thing. The ground in front of you, the men beside you, the sounds coming from directions you can't always see. You make 11 decisions in those hours that you can remember clearly afterwards. 3 of them are wrong. One of the wrong decisions costs you a man. A 20-year-old from a village near yours named Sato, who dies because you read the movement on your left flank incorrectly and positioned him in a place that became exposed. You see it happen. There's nothing to do except keep moving. Your side wins the battle. It doesn't feel like winning feels in the stories. It feels like stopping. Like the violence simply runs out of momentum and everyone who is still standing looks around and starts counting who isn't. You survive Tonezawa with a cut along your left forearm and a cracked rib from a blow that your armor absorbed partially but not entirely. The rib heals crooked. For the rest of your life, cold weather makes it ache. Over the next 6 years, you fight in 9 more engagements of varying size. You lose 4 more men under your command. You are promoted twice. You develop a reputation, not for brilliance or particular ferocity, but for steadiness, for being the kind of officer whose unit doesn't break when the situation becomes unclear. This is, in the world you occupy, one of the most valuable things a soldier can be. You're also developing a clearer picture of what war actually is. It is not the honorable contest described in the old stories. It is not 2 warriors meeting with equal weapons and equal chances, and the better man winning. It is agriculture. Systematic, large-scale, grinding. The goal is not to defeat the enemy's best warriors. The goal is to make continuing the war more expensive than ending it. Everything else is decoration. This does not make you cynical. It makes you precise. You stop expecting war to be something it isn't, which means you stop being surprised when it isn't, which means you make better decisions in it. You marry at 26 between campaigns. Her name is Mio. She is the daughter of a merchant family in the nearest town, not a samurai family, which some of your colleagues consider beneath your station. You consider this opinion to be irrelevant. Mio is intelligent, practical, and entirely clear-eyed about what marrying you means. She knows you will be gone. She knows the stipend is modest. She knows there is a version of the future where you don't come back from one of these campaigns. Your first child, a son, dies in infancy. Your second child, a daughter named Haru, survives. You are away when she is born. You receive a letter 3 weeks later. You read it twice and then fold it carefully and put it inside your armor, next to your chest, for the remainder of the campaign. By 35, the wars have settled into an uneasy arrangement of borders and agreements that everyone understands, will eventually break down, but that hold for now. You are given administrative responsibilities alongside your military ones. You oversee a territory of several villages, which means you are now the person who settles disputes about irrigation rights and decides what happens to men who steal from their neighbors. You are, in other words, exactly what your father was, a low-ranking administrator of small violences and small decisions, serving a lord whose name future generations may or may not remember. You find, to your surprise, that you are good at this. The same qualities that made you a steady officer make you a steady administrator. You listen more than you speak. You make decisions clearly and explain your reasoning, which most officials in your position don't bother to do. Your daughter Haru grows up watching you work. She is sharp and asks questions that catch you off guard. At 9, she asks you why the samurai receive stipends from rice they didn't grow. You tell her it is because they provide protection and administration. She thinks about this and asks, who decided that protection and administration were worth more rice than growing? You don't have a good answer. You tell her to ask a better man than you. She says she will try to find one. You have 2 more children, a son, Kenji, who survives, and another daughter who doesn't. Kenji begins weapons training at 5, the same age you did. You are not as hard on him as your father was on you. You're not sure if this is wisdom or weakness. You watch him and wonder. At 40, your lord dies. His successor is younger, more aggressive, less interested in the administrative competence you have spent 20 years building. He values battlefield performance and personal loyalty above everything else. You are not his kind of samurai. This is not a catastrophe. You are still employed, still useful, but you understand that your path forward has narrowed. Your mother dies at 62. You travel back to your village for her funeral. The house is smaller than you remember. The village is smaller. You stand at her grave and think about the morning she came to find you in the yard to tell you your father had died, and how she filled your bowl twice without being asked on the night before you left for service, and how she wrote you letters every few months for 40 years in handwriting that got harder to read as she aged. You stay at the house for 3 days. Then you return to your post. You are 51 when the wars come back. The agreements that held for 15 years collapse in the way agreements between ambitious men always eventually collapse. Slowly at first, then suddenly. Lord Asakura's successor makes an alliance that his rivals consider a threat. The rivals respond. By midsummer, the province is at war again. You are too old for the kind of fighting you did at 22. Your cracked rib aches constantly now. Your left knee, injured in a fall from a horse 8 years ago, has never fully recovered. Your eyes are good, but your reflexes are slower than they were, not by much, but enough that you know it, and knowing it changes how you fight. You are given command of a garrison position, which is both an acknowledgement of your experience and a way of keeping you out of the main engagements. You understand this. You accept it. You spend the first 2 months of the campaign fortifying your position, training the younger men under your command, and watching the horizon for movement. The attack comes in early autumn. They come with 200 men. You have 60. You have perhaps 4 hours. You use them. You are not thinking about honor when it happens. You are not thinking about legacy or how you will be remembered or whether your life meant something. You are thinking about the gap in the eastern wall that needs 2 more men and the angle of approach that your archers haven't properly accounted for, and whether the runner you sent to the main garrison will arrive in time to matter. The runner does not arrive in time to matter. Your men hold longer than anyone should reasonably expect. 3 hours and 40 minutes by your estimation. Long enough for dawn to break. Long enough for the main force to see the smoke and understand what is happening. long enough for several of your men to retreat in good order and survive. You do not retreat. Not because you are performing some noble last stand, because by the time retreat becomes the correct tactical decision for you personally, it is no longer physically possible. You were never a great warrior. You were never a man whose name anyone would remember, but you were steady, and in the end, that was enough. Of the 60 men who held that garrison, 23 survived. Your body was found near the eastern wall, next to the gap you had ordered reinforced. Your sword was still in your hand. Kenji, your son, received the news 3 weeks later. He read the letter twice, folded it carefully, and put it inside his armor next to his chest. He had learned that from somewhere. If this story made you feel something, subscribe. Next week, another life, another world. The same question: what does it actually feel like to be there?